contact with us, please let us know.
We've heard a lot of stories about this particular room. Is there...
You're watching my Ivy or what?
I got you, sure.
Ocean, please go in there.
One jump, one off, one off, two off, two
Oh,
off.
two off. Oh, I'm dead.
Watch it,
Two all off, two all off, two all off.
Sandwich! Help! 5.
Still
Olaf.
Olaf one.
5. Olaf.
One's back to you.
5 Olaf.
Oh, I'm taking it.
E-box 5.
Live.
Fuck my ass, bro. Pushing Z, and back 5.
100% watching this stream.
Oh, you blew your load early.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Yes!
3 bullets.
3 bullets.
It's all you dream, baby. It's not how you start, it's how you end.
2 hands.
Nah, he's
Very
cross-eyed. He
handsome.
doesn't know. He's cross-eyed right now.
I don't want to do it to him, dog.
Ooh, you have to
I don't want to do it to him, dog. I didn't want to, though.
Poggers!
What the fuck?
Hog champ! Oh, Omega lol!
Alright, I'm fucking done.
I talked about emotes the other day, how like, I don't understand everyone's obsession with emotes. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. And everyone in chat only emoted for the rest of the night.
He's a new man.
Omega lol!
Nothing Ivy, nothing Ivy.
Let's keep on.
Once you thought that you're about to burn alive, homie.
Flash and team mid.
He-
No.
Oh my god.
Alright, I'll go
Getting
enter
in
this
ladder.
round. I'll take. Everyone gets
Weird
one.
champ.
Everyone has to play enter once. This is my rounds.
Yeah, I just went.
Alright, so I'll go this round.
Yeah.
Alright.
I'll do it this round. I'll do it this
No,
round.
no, I got this round. Don't worry
So
about
we'll get you out of the way at once, no?
Alright, fine. There's no point in that.
Weird champ?
There's no weird champion, bro.
AK Ola, fuck! Nice, Osh!
I'm just clear again.
Yes, Stewie!
I got him.
Yeah.
Oh, what's
Last
Kiko?
two team mid probably. Oh, never mind.
Lost
Nice!
Ladder's clear, Ocean.
Yeah, hold on.
Good job, Mr.
Ocean, what the fuck's you
Ocean,
do again,
you're
dog?
insane,
I
bro.
don't know, I just fucking
You
took
just
him down,
fucking
bro.
counting racks.
Hold on,
or
Tarek,
something.
since put on Ecos.
Who cares?
Where?
This is fucking
Ladder,
fucking
ladder.
weird as fuck.
Two ladder. Are they out?
Oh my god.
no.
Someone get
Weird
me-
champ.
Oh my god, you're
Someone
looking
give me
old,
info.
dude.
I'm dead, bro. You just told me from Ola. I'm so confused on how bad I am right now.
Weird champ.
Sorry, I just learned about
Last
weird
guy
champ.
mid.
Oh, I thought-
Come on, maybe you should hold on to it, dog. After that shot.
Come on, baby.
Coming down.
No, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I'm still being flash me, tapping.
No flash, dog.
Much lower. What are you? What are we
I
doing?
got everything. Leave me.
Ladder.
Is this cut as your inner?
Yeah.
That's the ladder. That's the inner guy.
Ladder.
What's down, weird champ?
I don't let it.
To the left side, weird champ.
You got him. No,
got it.
I think.
Oh,
Ladder.
he's baiting his. Oh.
Missed him, weird champ.
What? Oh my mo. Come here.
It's one guy left.
That's a knife hit I've ever seen.
No, you guys didn't hit him, bro?
10 health. Yes. Of course we didn't hit him.
Alright,
Of
I'm
course we
up
didn't
and
hit him.
down. I'm up and down.
He's literally in your molly, murdering me from your molly.
Fucking so bad. One down.
Nice, Jeff. One more,
lower.
Jeff. Handle it.
Lower that?
Where?
He was in there. He killed me lower.
Weird champ.
20
He has
seconds.
no bomb. He has no bomb.
Here's a dog.
Watch out, he's gay.
Whoa, what's that mean, huh?
That's his name. It's a tab.
He's
On
team mid,
you.
team mid.
You ever see
I'm gonna knife him, I'm gonna
Here,
knife him.
no,
Distract
no
for me?
scope. No scope.
Distract for
No
me?
scope is better than knife. Go.
This is good, this is
Now!
good. Let him out. No, let him out.
Letting him out.
Let him out, trust me, bro.
Haus di rumah?
Haus di luar, minumnya teh pucuk harum.
Bro.
There you go. If this doesn't get you the kill,
Weird champ.
That's a weird champ for me,
Hit him
dog.
with a weird champ.
Weird champ for me, too.
He's gonna probably
He
Let's
did
team
it.
it up and
Weird champ on it.
let's team it, watch out.
Oh fuck my! He's left side.
One's in ladder. Watch out. One's in ladder. Three and B.
Mid looks clear. Mid looks clear.
Omega
A's
champ.
clear. All A's clear.
No!
What happened to you? How? How'd you get knifed?
Ladder.
One ladder, Mo. That was him. That
That was him,
motherfucker.
yeah. You should have waited for me to Omega. Feels weird, man.
Mo, there's an op over here.
In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to get input from a user. So we're basically going to allow a user to input information into our program. And I'm actually going to take the information that the user inputs, I'm going to store it inside of a variable, and then we're going to be able to do something with that variable. So I want to show you guys how we can actually go about getting input from someone. And down here in my Python file, all I have to do to get input from someone is I just have to type out input and then an open and closed parentheses. And what this is basically going to do is it's going to tell Python like, hey, we want to get input from a user, and Python will allow the user to type in some information. And inside of these parentheses, we can actually type a prompt. And so generally when we want the user to enter in some information, we want to tell them what we want them to enter. And that's what we can put inside of here. So I'm just going to say, enter your name. So we're actually going to create a little Python app which is going to allow the user to enter in their name, and then we'll store the name inside of a variable, and then we'll basically just say hi to the user. So we'll say like hi, and then whatever the name they entered was. So what I want to do is I actually want to store whatever the user inputted into our program inside of a variable. So I can actually go over here and I can create a variable. I could just call it name, and I could set this variable equal to input. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the value that the user inputs and I'm storing it inside of this variable container called name. And so now I have access to whatever they entered in. So what we can do is we can say print, and inside of the parentheses, I can just print out hello, and then I'm just gonna add on to this name. And actually, why don't we put an exclamation point? So essentially, we're getting a name from the user, we're storing it inside of the name variable, and I'm printing it out onto the screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and when we run the program, you'll notice down here, Python is giving us this little prompt. So it's saying, enter your name. And now in here, I can actually type in a value. So I could type in Mike, and then I can just hit enter, and Python's gonna go ahead, store this value inside of that variable, and then it's gonna print out hello Mike. And so this is kind of cool, and actually what we could do is we could prompt the user to enter in more than one piece of information. So I could actually copy this line of code, and I'm gonna paste it below here, and why don't we have the user enter in another variable. So we could have them enter in, for example, their
Bro, I have one of these.
Alright.
Zayu uses
Zoomer?
it.
You got a zoomer, bro.
Well, they call you Zaiwu Jr.
I mean, I have the
My
same
chat's
body as
actually
him, so
trying to
I'm halfway there.
translate what saying.
Their age. And over here, we just want to say enter your age. age. And so now we're able to get two pieces of information from the user, and I can say hello name, and then I can say you are, and I'll print out their age. So I'm just gonna print age. So now I'm basically able to get both of these pieces of information from the user. I can get their name and I can get their age. So when we run this program, I can type in both of those pieces of information. So it'll say enter your name. So we could just make up a name like John, and then enter the age. Let's say John is 25. And now it's gonna say, hello John, you are 25. So the program is able to get input from the user, and then it's able to use that information in order to say hi to the user and tell them how old they are. And so getting input from the user is a great way to make your programs more interactive. And here we're just scratching the surface, right? We're just basically getting two, pieces of information from the user, but you can use these inputs to do awesome things in Python. And as we go through this course, you're going to see some really cool things that we can do with these inputs. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to build a very basic calculator in Python. We're basically going to build a calculator where we'll get two numbers from a user, and then we'll add those numbers together and print the answer out onto the screen. So this will give us some practice in getting input from users, and we'll also talk about getting numbers from users as opposed to just strings. So I'm really excited to get started on this calculator. The first thing we want to do is create two variables, and inside of those variables we want to store the two numbers that the user wants to add together. So down here I'm just going to say num1, and that's what we'll call our first variable, is equal to, and now I need to get input from the user. So I'm going to say input, and inside these parentheses I'm going to say enter a number. And now I basically want to do the same exact thing, but for the second number. So we'll paste this guy down here, and I'm just going to say num2, and then we'll just say enter another number. So now we're able to store the user's input inside of these two variables. So now all I want to do is just print out the result. So I'm actually going to create a variable called result. So I'm just going to say result is equal to, and basically we just want to add these two numbers together. So I'm going to say num1 plus num2. And now all we have to do is just print out the result. So I'm just going to print result. So we basically have our entire program written out here, and this will allow us to enter in two numbers, and then we'll add them together and print out the answer. So I'm going to click play, and down here we can enter our number. So I'm going to enter the first number, we'll say 5, and I'm going to enter my second number, so let's say 8.0, or let's say 8.3. So now it should print out the answer, but if you look over here, that's not quite the answer we were looking for, right? 5 plus 8.3 is definitely not 58.3. And here's what happened. When we get input from a user, by default, Python is just going to convert it into a string. So it doesn't matter what we put down there when we're entering the numbers. Python's always just going to be like, okay, this is a string, that's it. Sounds good, right? It's just going to make it a string. In order for us to make these num1 and num2 variables numbers, we're actually going to have to convert the strings that we get from the user into numbers. And so the way that we can do that is by basically just coming over here, and when we add the two numbers together, I can use a special Python function in order to convert those strings into numbers. And there's actually two Python functions that we could use for this. The first is called int. So I could say int, I can make an open parentheses, and I can make a close parentheses. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to convert whatever is inside of these open and closed parentheses into an integer number. And an integer number is basically a whole number. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a whole number. In other words, it can't have a decimal point. And so what I could do is I could say int, and I could put these inside of parentheses, and now what this is going to do is it's going to convert both of these numbers into integers, in other words, into whole numbers that don't have decimals, and it's going to add them together and we'll print out the result. So why don't we do that, and we'll just see if this works. So I'm going to click the play button, and down here we'll enter our first number. So I'm just going to enter in a 4, and then I'll enter in a 5. And now you can see it's printing out the correct answer, 4 plus 5. And so that's essentially our base. Basic calculator. But we do have one problem with this calculator, so I'm going to run it again and I'll show you guys what that problem is. If I wanted to add in a decimal number, so we'll add 4.3 and 5.5, you'll see that we're getting this error, and that's because I'm using this int function up here, and this int function is looking for a whole number. So if I put decimal numbers inside of there, it's going to break the program. There's another function we can use. Instead of an int, we can say float. And a float is basically just a number that has decimals, so it's a decimal number. So I can convert both of these guys into floats, and now I'll be able to use decimal numbers. So I can click play, and I can just enter in some numbers. So I could say like 4, and I could also say like 5.5. And now it's gonna be able to add both of those numbers, even if one of them is a decimal. And that's the beauty of using that little float function. So in certain circumstances, you might want the user to only be able to enter in an integer, so a whole number. But in a lot of cases, like in this calculator, we want them to be able to enter any number that they want. So we're gonna use this float function. So I'm just gonna recap what we did one more time. We created two variables, num1 and num2. And we basically stored the two numbers that the users inputted into those variables. And then we converted them into numbers, and we added them together and we printed out the results. So this is a pretty cool calculator. I'm happy with it. Hopefully you guys learned something. And as we go forward in this Python course, you're gonna learn all sorts of ways that we can make this calculator more complex. In this tutorial, I want to show you guys how to build a Mad Libs game in Python. So a Mad Libs game is basically just a game where you can enter in a bunch of random words. So like, you know, verbs now. 3, 4, 5. So it's a whole number. In other words, it can't have.
Saya sedang bekerja sebagai pekerja magang di sebuah perusahaan kecil ekspor-impor. Suatu hari, saya harus menerjemahkan dokumen tentang
And I could put these inside of parentheses. parentheses. And now what this is going to do is the result. And now you can see it's printing out the correct answer, 4 plus 5. And so that's essentially our basic calculator. But we do have one problem with this calculator. So I'm going to run it again and I'll show you guys what that problem is there. It's going to break the program. And so I can convert both of these guys into floats. And now I'll be able to use decimal numbers. So I can click play and I can just enter in some numbers. So I could say like 4 and I could also say like 5.5. And now it's going to be able to add both of those numbers even if one of them is a decimal. And that's the beauty of using that little float function. So in certain circumstances, you might want the user to only be able to enter in an integer, so a whole number. But in a lot of cases, like in this calculator, we want them to be able to enter any number that they want. So we're going to use this float function. So I'm just going to recap what we did one more time. We created two variables, num1 and num2. And we basically stored the two numbers that the users inputted into those variables. And then we converted them into numbers and we added them together and we printed out the results. So this is a pretty cool calculator. I'm happy with it. Hopefully you guys learned something. And as we go forward in this Python course, you're going to learn all sorts of ways that we can make this calculator more complex.
Hello, my name is Carmen Law, better known as belajar. I'm an independent.
In this tutorial, I want to show you guys how to build a Mad Libs game in Python. So a Mad Libs game is basically just a game where you can enter in a bunch of random words, so like, you know, verbs, nouns, names, colors, and you basically take all of those words and put them into a story randomly. So over here, my web browser, I just have an example of a Mad Libs. So, you know, down here, we're basically just taking random words like an adjective or a noun or a plural noun and entering them inside of a story. So like you read through the story and then like some random word pops up. And Mad Libs can be pretty fun, and I'm sure you guys have, you know, at least heard of Mad Libs before. But if not, that was just a little introduction. So I want to create a Mad Libs in Python, and this is going to be really cool. So down here I have this like little poem. It just says, "Roses are red, violets are blue, I love you." And so, you know, this is kind of like a classic poem, but I think we should mix it up a little bit and create a Mad Lib for this poem. And so instead of having this red color over here, I want to have the user enter in their own color. Instead of having violets, why don't we have them enter in a plural noun? And instead of saying I love you, why don't we have them say I love and then some celebrity, so celebrity. So this is the basic structure for our little Mad Lib, right? I want to basically have the user enter in a color, enter in a plural noun, and enter in a celebrity. And then I'll take all of those words and put them inside of our Mad Lib, and hopefully we end up with something that's pretty funny. So how can we actually go about building this in Python? Well, the first thing we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to be able to get these words from the user, right? That's pretty obvious. So I think what we should do is we should create 3 variables called color, plural noun, and celebrity, and we'll store the user's inputs inside of those variables. So up here, let's create those variables. The first variable I want to create is going to be called color. So we'll say color, and I want to set this equal to the input. So I'm going to say input, and inside of here, I'm just going to give them a prompt. So I'll say enter a color, and we can basically just copy this line of code, and I'm going to paste it down below, and we'll paste one more time. So now we're going to create our plural noun variable. So I'll say plurao, plural noun, and we'll just say enter a plural noun. And actually over here I want to make a colon as well. So then finally we'll create our celebrity variable, and we'll say enter a celebrity. And So now basically we're creating 3 variables called color, plural noun, and celebrity. And inside of them we're storing the color that the user enters, the plural noun the user enters, and the celebrity the user enters. So the last thing we have to do is replace these guys with those variables. So I'm basically just going to add in the color over here. And we're gonna add in the plural noun. So I can just go like this. And finally, we'll just add in that celebrity. So now we have a pretty cool Madlib, and it should be functional. Everything should work. It looks like it's good to go. So let's come over here and we'll run our program, and then
they don't come fucking in here. Fuck this shit.
Watching a lot. Plastic.
And down here in the console, we can play our little Mad Libs game. So let's say enter a color. I'm just gonna say magenta. Enter a plural noun. Why don't we say microwaves? And enter a celebrity. Let's say Tom Hanks. So when I click enter, what should happen is we should get our Mad Libs printed out. So I'm gonna click enter. And now we have our Mad Libs. So it says roses are magenta, microwaves are blue, I love Tom Hanks. So it's a pretty good Mad Lib. And obviously, you know, the more print statements we put over here, you know, the better the Mad Lib could be. And we could store as many, you know, variables up here as we wanted. This was just a very simple Mad Lib. We only took in 3 inputs, but
dude, this guy's insane.
See how you can take something like this and create a little Mad Libs game. So your homework for this lesson is to go off and make your own Mad Libs game. Hopefully one that's a little bit funnier than mine. But that's the basics of creating a Mad Libs game in Python. In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about working with lists in Python. A lot of times when you're programming in Python, you're going to be dealing with large amounts of data. And when you're dealing with large amounts of data, you want to make sure that you can manage it and organize it properly. And a list is essentially just a structure that we can use inside of Python to store lists of information. So we can take a bunch of different data values, we can put them inside a list, and it allows us to organize them and keep track of them a lot easier. So generally you would create a Python list and you would put a bunch of related values inside of that list, and then you can use it throughout your program. So I'm going to show you guys just the basics of using lists. We're going to look at some of the common use cases and really just get you up to speed with what lists are and why they're useful. So over here in my program, I'm actually going to create a list. And we create a list a lot like we create a Python, just like a normal Python variable. So the first thing we want to do when we're making a list is give it a name. So we want to give it a descriptive name, something that's going to basically describe what's inside the list. In my case, for this example, let's make a list of like friends. So we could say like, here's a list of all my friends. So I can say friends, and I'm going to set this equal to the list of values that represent my friends. And when we want to create a list, we can use these open and closed square brackets. So whenever you use these open and closed square brackets, Python basically knows, okay, they want to store a bunch of values inside of this list. So why don't we go ahead and start adding some values? So we can say like my friends are like Kevin, Karen, and let's say Jim. So here I have 3 values inside of my friends array. So when we're creating a normal variable in Python, generally we just give it one value, right? So I would create a variable, I would give it one value, maybe a string or a number or a Boolean. But when we make lists, we're able to store multiple values inside of the same like little item, inside of the same object, right? And then what I can do is I can access these individual items inside of my program. So inside of this friends list, we're basically storing all of these different values, and that can be really useful. So now that we've stored some values, let's talk about what you can put inside of a list. So you can really put any piece of information in Python. We could put things like strings, numbers, or booleans. So if I wanted, instead of just putting strings here, I could change like one of these to a number, and I could change one of these to a Boolean, and it wouldn't matter. Python's going to be fine with that. But let's change these back to strings just for the sake of the example. So now that we've created our list, how can we access individual elements inside of this list? It's a good question. I'm going to go ahead and print something out to the screen. The first thing we can do is we can just print out the actual list. So I can just say print friends, and then when I run this program, if we look down here in the console, you can see it's just printing out the actual list of friends, right? But let's say that I wanted to print out a specific element inside of this list. Well, I can actually refer to elements by their index. So each one of the elements inside of this list has a particular index. And the indexes actually start at 0. So we would say that this first element in the list, Kevin, has an index of 0. We would say that this other element, Karen, has an index of 1. And this third element, Jim, would have an index of 2. So even though Jim is technically the third element inside of the list, it has an index of 2. And that's because we start indexing at index position 1. And so that's just kind of how lists work, and that's how list indexes work. So if I wanted to access a specific element inside of my friends list, I can just refer to it by its index. So over here, after we type out friends, I'm just going to type an open and closed square bracket. And inside of this open and closed square bracket, I want to put the index of the element inside the list that I want to access. So if I wanted to access this guy right here, this element, I can just put a 0. So I can say friends 0, and now when I run my program, it's just going to print out that value. It's just going to print out Kevin. If I wanted to access this Jim value over here, I can put a 2, and that will give us that Jim value. You can see right there. So we can access elements based off of their index. We can also access elements based off of their index from the back of the list. So for example, if I said -1 inside of here, this is going to give me access to this value right here for Jim. And you can see that's what it does. So when we use negatives, it starts indexing from the back of the list. So if I said -2, this is going to give us Karen. And so you can use the negatives to access items at the back of the list. Just keep in mind though, and this is kind of interesting, we would say this first element here is index position 0, right? But we would say the first element at the back of the list is index position -1. So just keep that in mind. So there's actually other ways that we can access like just portions of this list. So for example, let's say I just wanted to select the last 2 elements in this list and I didn't want to select the first one. Well, in here I can just say 1 with a colon, and this will grab the element at index position 1 and all of the elements after that. So now we should just grab Jim and Karen, or Karen and Jim in that order.
Hit him with the weird champ.
Weird champ. Papega. Ooh. That's a hey guys. That's a hey guys.
Mo, can you flash me into mid?
Yeah, for dead.
Flash it?
One more scouting mid.
Come in 1 sec.
I'm blind!
Sorry, he's blind too. He's blind too. God damn it! I'll get everything for you. He's blind too, bro.
Left,
what are you doing?
Back away, back away.
Come on, Stu. Nice. One more. Papega.
He's coming up.
Ooh, hit him with the ladder. Hit him with the ladder.
Chill,
Hit
don't
him with the
block.
ladder champ. Hit him with the ladder champ.
Don't block.
Ladder champ.
Shut up, bro.
No! Did we just lose? Dude, you can't. If you can't do ladder champ, don't attempt it.
Dude, ladder champ's fucking something that you try once in your life.
Yeah, dude. You guys are not. You guys don't have the balls for ladder champ. Bro, my fucking.
I brought a fucking McGev by accident. This dude.
Come on,
fucking
bro.
McGev.
Flop,
Good luck,
back
man.
right, stuck.
Yeah, they can come out ladder.
I'll smoke for you 1 second.
Walking up, bro.
Be a bitch, be a bitch.
Oh my god, this guy walked
He's
out
tried
ladder.
to ball me about.
Go.
I'm keeping this shit, fuck it.
2 team mid, last 2 team mid.
Papega! Papega! Through the wall. Jump off. Papega champ. Now, jump off. Through the wall. Poggers. This is it. Start it. The spray. Start the spray.
Where's he going?
He's just outside teammate looking to take a peek for like an hour. He's not taking a bait. Oh, he's trying to knife.
Oh, he's trying to knife you. Oh, make him champ!
What a bitch, dude. This is a what face, though. This is Dan's game.
There's 100 health, Osh.
There's a 4
Keep your knife out.
This is 5 hit.
Papega. Pistol out, Papega champ. Oh! No! He doesn't have time to plant. Go.
Nade him.
It's Kobe.
Nada champ! Yes!
Big champ.
Poggers, bro! That's a oh shit, that almost used to be. That was a 1G right there. Don't worry, Poggers. Do this for you. Ooh.
Yeah, anybody got
You got
flash
Osh.
for teammate?
I got you, Osh.
Oh, Terry, doing the weird
Oh
champ.
my god, what the fuck? How did I not see this
Is this
guy?
spammable? That's a Dan's game for sure. Keep doing it. Nice. One more.
Nice.
One more. You got this.
He loves playing hell.
Hold on, let me catch it. Sandwich. He's sandwich. See, I told you. Monkeys.
1 team mid hit.
Flash him mid.
Oh my god, bro! Come on, man!
I'm in, bro.
How?
What gun do you guys have?
Yeah, you gotta smoke ladder next time, you son of a mega
There's
mega.
e-bike.
Ladder, two.
Two e-bikes.
Ladder champion, ladder champion.
Oh.
One top blue.
Nice, ladder champion, nice!
You bought. Oh, sandwich, you hear him? Fuck his dad, hurry up.
Dude, my fucking DPI turned up, bro. I had to turn it.
It's alright.
Turn up for what?
They're going Ivy, bro.
One ladder.
Got one more.
There's no
One ladder.
Wait, they haven't gone Ivy once, although I think about it. Alright, ladder. I'm nading it, Kobe.
Knife him, Papega!
You wanna knife him for real? I'm flashing it.
No. Okay,
Flash
fine,
him again.
fine. I'm mulling in there too, I'm mulling in. If we die, he dies with us, go! One's middle, go for it, Terry.
Oh, sandwich, how already?
They actually beat.
Someone flash out.
One's Olaf still. Olaf
One's
still.
down lower, one's down lower.
Oh, he lost our best player. One's still Olaf, by the way, just so you guys know.
Olaf
He
dead.
Back bomb, back bomb.
Back bomb, back bomb.
Back pop still. I thought you cleared it. Fuck this game! Call it down! Talk to me! Communicate!
Is the key to
He's
success.
pop. He's pop.
Ladder's clear.
Papega
Center,
champ, there
center.
should be in her.
Take a champ where?
Oh, I'm dead. Got 2 in already. Why don't we have anyone in here? Explain that one to me.
Thought you
We
were
gotta
an
talk
inside
about
player.
One more in
Under
here.
bomb chain, bomb chain.
Oh, God.
Make it that
Anime,
talk about.
anime light matter. Okay.
That's bomb, that's bomb.
Molly the bomb, they'll freak him out.
Oh,
That's a sick play by this fucking.
What? Say it.
Tell me.
You're gonna
No.
call him gay. You're gonna call him gay.
The fuck's wrong with you, man?
His name is gay. I don't know why no one sees that but me.
Weird champ, E-Bot. Weird champ, fuck that. See,
Back bomb.
still see.
Take a knee, dude.
Z is better than I'll ever be. Thanks.
Oh, there's a bot at the.
Nah.
Oh, that knife, that guy. Mercy. Oh, was that a bot?
Nah. I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Oh,
I have an
leave
empty
this
shotgun. Let me go
Shut up. Shut the fuck up.
first. Fuck up, you hobbit.
Get down there.
Watch our big plane. Watch our plane. Big dogs.
Ooh, one flank, one flank.
What the fuck? One's flank.
Might not be.
Oh!
CT and flank.
CC flying. He's got a champ.
Okay.
That's unfortunate. That's quite unfortunate.
I'm looking for something to punch. Hold on.
Just punch his head.
I'll punch your daughter, dude.
What the?
Oh.
What the hell?
The fuck? I didn't know.
Chill out.
I ain't watched
Yeah,
Relax.
we're just weird chanting, boys. The fuck?
That's a weird chant. That's a weird chant.
Jump it. Ooh, that
You
was nice.
go in there? Oh, I see one at.
No, top blue low, top blue low.
Wait.
Ladder.
Top blue low.
One more team.
Nice. Ooh, I hit- Get him, bomb.
Woo!
Woo! That's a podgasm, baby.
I gotta
Podgasm.
watch it. That green dead. I'm
One ladder, did you kill him?
One ladder.
One Z, one Z.
What the fuck? I can't get up this fucking ladder, dude.
One was Z, bro.
Let's go.
Z dead.
Sandwich, bro. This fucking nerd.
Bro, I'm literally insane right now. You can't tell from my score, but I'm insane right now.
Yeah, that flash.
They molly down to mid. Fuck.
Try. You got me? Papega?
E-box, E-box. E-box, you got him?
Papega, got it.
Don't do that. They're all outside. All outside.
That's it. Papega champ.
The peg champ.
Mohammed, dude, you're god in T-side train.
Kappa.
Wait, actually, no one said fucking Kappa this whole time. That's actually insane.
This guy actually goes into my mall.
Back five.
Weird champ. Back five and back bomb. Back five, back bomb.
Consider them all dead. Everyone stay alive.
Sandwich.
I got this.
Another one back bomb. Back bomb.
Sandwich
Muhammad.
dead.
Back
Oh,
Z, I
Muhammad.
think? G. Ooh.
Weird champ!
One bomb train.
Top 5 dead.
Oh my god. One bomb train.
Fucking make this guy.
There you go. Going up there.
You watch my
No,
ladder,
we
champ.
didn't get him.
Nice job, champ.
Nice champ.
Nice champ.
Nice champ.
Nice.
Hooters.
Boogers.
Jump through. You have good timing now. Good timing now. Oh my god!
30 years of experience.
I could also specify a range. So actually, let me add in a couple other elements just so we can illustrate this better. So I'll add in 2 more names. So if I wanted to, I could select like the element at index position 1 up to the element at index position 3. So it's gonna grab this one, so that's 1, 2, and it's actually not gonna grab the 3rd one. So it's gonna grab all the elements up to, but not including 3. So it'll grab Karen and Jim. So let's go ahead and run this, and you can see it grabs Karen and Jim. So you can either just put like 1 with a colon after it, and then it'll grab that index. And Jim. So let's go ahead and run this, and you can see it grabs Karen and Jim. So they're Booleans. So if I wanted these back to lit actual, if we look, but let's say we refer to elements by their index. So each one of the elements inside of this list has a particular index, and the indexes actually start in this specific, and inside of this I can just put in value. Also access elements too, and that will based off X from the back of the access to the starts there. And the element at the back, other ways to select, I can just say in all of the elements after that. So now we should just grab Jim and Karen, or Karen and Jim in that order. I could also specify a range. So actually, let me add in a couple other elements just so we can illustrate this better. So I'll add in 2 more names. So if I wanted to, I could select like the element at index position 1 up to the element at index position 3. So it's gonna grab this one, so that's 1, 2, and it's actually not gonna grab the 3rd one. So it's gonna grab all the elements up to, but not including 3. So it'll grab Karen and Jim. So let's go ahead and run this, and you can see it grabs Karen and Jim. So you can either just put like 1 with a colon after it, and then it'll grab that index position and everything after it, or you can specify like a range that you want to grab from. So that's how we can access elements inside of this list, but we can also modify elements. So for example, I could come down here, let's say I want to modify this value right here, Karen. Well, all I have to do is just access that element. So I could say friends and Karen is at index position 1, and I could change this to whatever I want. So I could say friends index position 1 is equal to Mike. And now when we print out friends index position 1, that value is going to be updated. So it's just going to say Mike instead of saying Karen. So it can be really useful to modify values inside of arrays. So it can be really useful to modify values inside of Python lists. So those are kind of the basics of working with lists in Python. And actually in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you guys even more ways that we can use these lists. We're going to learn how to like add elements to a list, delete elements from a list, copy lists, and a bunch of cool stuff with these lists. But for now, this has just been sort of like the basics of working with lists.
Hello, my name is Common Law, better known as belajar. I'm an independent.
In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about using functions with lists in Python. In Python, a list is one of the most important structures where we can store our information. A list basically allows you to take a bunch of different values and organize them and store them inside of their own little list structure. So down here in my program, you can see I have two lists. I have a list of lucky numbers, and this is just a bunch of different numbers. And then I have a list of friends. So this could be like a list of somebody's friends, and it's basically just a bunch of strings with names in them. So these two lists are storing a bunch of different values. And what makes lists awesome is not only could I store, I could also actually not, it grabs Karen and Jim. So access elements inside of this list, but we can also modify elements. So for example, I could come down here, let's say I want to modify this value right here, Karen, that you would use on lists to make them more powerful and make them more easy to use. So the first thing we can do is obviously just print out a list. So down here, I'm printing out this friends list. And when I run my program, you see down here, we're just printing out all the elements in the list. So it's always good to be able to print out all the elements inside of a list. But there's a lot of other functions that we can use. So one function is called the extend function. And the extend function will basically allow you to take a list and append another list onto the end of it. So I could say like friends.extend, And inside of these parentheses, I can pass in the list that I want to add on to the friends list. So I could say like lucky numbers. And now when I print out this friends list, not only is it going to have all the elements in the friends list, it's also going to have all the elements inside the lucky numbers list. You can see down here we have all of our friends, and then we also have the numbers over here. So that's a really easy way to essentially just like add two lists together. We can also just add individual elements onto a list. So I could come down here and I could say friends.append, and this will actually allow me to append another item onto the end of this list. So over here I could just add another name. So we could say Creed, for example, and now I'm like adding another friend onto the end of this list. So when I run the program, in addition to having the original items that were in the list up here, we also have this additional item at the end. And that append function is always going to add the item onto the end of the list. But let's say that you wanted to add an item into the middle of the list, so like right here or right here. There's another list function called insert. And insert is going to take two parameters. The first parameter is going to be the index where you want to insert the item. So why don't we insert it here at index position 1. I'm just going to say 1. And then I'm going to type in the name of the element that I want to add. So we can just say like Kelly. And now at index position 1, we're going to have the value Kelly, and all of these other values are going to get pushed up. They're going to get pushed to the right one index position. So now when I run the program, you can see we have Kevin, this new element Kelly, and then all the other elements have been pushed off to the right. We can also remove elements. So for example, let's say I wanted to remove this Jim value. All I have to do is just say friends.remove, and I can just type in whatever element I want to remove. So I want to remove this Jim element. And so now when we run the program, Jim is going to be gone from the list, and we just have these 4 guys left. You can also remove all of the elements from the list. So if I just wanted to completely like reset the list and get rid of everything, I could just say friends.clear, and this is gonna give us an empty list. So it'll get rid of every single element.
Willie?
It's just fake
you
news,
on.
like you say.
We got B, boys. Let's go. Backball. Trade that. Trade
All
that.
this fast
Trade that,
forward.
bud.
Mo, trade that. Mo like out. Mo like out. Never mind.
Swindle. Swindle.
Get him, Mo. Get him.
Almost like that.
Nice.
It's for you, bro.
One more. For the boys. For the boys.
Planning.
Don't plant, bro. You gotta clear the site, bro.
He was there the whole time,
Mo, Mo, why didn't you clear the site, bro?
How am I supposed to... Stewie's job!
Stewie, why didn't you clear the site, bro?
Where you been, man? I don't like this new angle of yours. It shows that you're cross-eyedness.
Can you guys open up mid? We gotta kill it up.
Open it up.
Open it up.
Open it
Got
up.
him. Next. Bon voyage.
probably Pit. Ocean, you got this.
Ocean, get out there, baby.
Come out there, noobs. I'm live. I'm not. What are you guys doing? How? How?
Hold on.
What the fuck is happening with you guys? Boiler? Did none of you clear boiler? I don't understand.
You got us. Oh no.
Oh my God, why do we have our worst players lurking?
You got a flash for spawn?
Oh shit, I didn't switch spawn. Oh! Another kill. Who's that? Guys?
Guys?
No, two spawn.
Guys?
Sight. Behind single.
Planting the smoke on the left side. Right there.
Nah, fuck up. God damn it, I suck.
Left,
Oh shit.
left. Arch.
What the
Nice.
fuck are you doing?
1v1A, you got this.
I'm getting. You guys are making my IBS act up right now. It's sort of done. That's when I get stressed. I'm gonna go to the bathroom after this. I don't know how long I'll be there. Probably good. Oh!
Lane, get this guy.
Lane.
Library.
One house,
Bro,
one
these
house.
guys are fucking cheating. Everyone stop streaming right now.
No.
Alright, bro, let's take
You
this a little
bring
more serious.
Tarek and Stewie on the same team, and it's over.
That's
This is
together.
MIBR all over again. We're fucked.
Mo's like falling asleep.
Paul's looking older and older every time I see him, huh?
Ocean is called Zero.
Oh, just called zero.
Flashing, flashing again.
Spawn.
That one's right. Oh, one more. God damn it! Go, good job. You're both
Put me up,
close. You're both close.
put me up.
Oh my God, please don't.
Nah, they don't take this.
Run with me? I'm jumping.
No,
Oh, I got one.
okay, we lost.
Zero.
Banana flank, banana
Water.
Flank, you got this gold.
Get you situation.
1v2, guns out, Cold! Nice, no time, play the bomb, you got this.
Flash, use
Hit him
it.
with the flash. Swing wide. Ooh, that's nice, Ocean. I know you've been gamming on my service.
100% these guys are sniping, so I'll handle it right here. Could be getting flanked.
Smoke spawn. I got Spindle.
One spawn.
He's gonna peek me fucking first.
Come back to A right now.
No, we got B already.
The kid's
There's
in
two
A.
here.
Triple for sure.
The kid's in A.
Oh shit, you should go A,
You
Ocean.
look right.
Run it.
I don't trust him, bro. Would
Can you guys come back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm low.
What?
I'm
I can't
low.
hear a word, bro. I can't hear a step. Not a single step.
Hey,
They're fighting, man. They're fighting. Oh wait, they can hear.
we can hear
This
you,
is
Paul,
good.
please!
You guys are double boiler.
What did I just hear?
Well, you peek first.
Oh,
Halt. Fuck it, bro.
Good.
Fast move.
Faker, dog.
Not on it.
Don't move.
Not on it.
Keep jumping, isn't it?
He's
Why
on.
is he still jumping, bro? He knows he's
Why
not
are
on
you
it.
still
He knows he's not on it. He's still jumping.
It's so weird. So he can randomly hit you in that, huh? They're 100% stream sniping.
DP.
Why would he
MVP on
jiggle
the
peak
D.
boiler right there like a little fucking little dick, Nick?
What the fuck? You got a Molly in motion? Molly triple. Flash and spawn. Let's take it. Watch out, dog. I'm in.
First order. Maybe second.
Low. Ooh, that's a good trade, dog.
Blink!
Ocean, it's on you. Teammates 1 HP. You need to kill him, Ocean.
God damn it, Ocean! Do some throw this for
Back off.
more. Be rushing for just win the round. Why are you trying to kill them? Just win the round. Hide in the back halls. It's planted for you.
Nah, he needs to get a. He needs to
So
get a.
kill him! It's a one-on-one with just a pistol, you noob! Why would you run towards a fucking angle where you could get multi-angle? God damn, you're an idiot!
Multi-angle.
God damn. Yeah, you ran in the open like an idiot, bro. Fuck, I can't fucking do this. I can't do this. I'm too old to fucking teach. I'm too old to teach right now. You've been playing for 30 years, Ocean, you fucking moron.
I'll flash arch, call it.
Big link.
Call it flash arch.
He mollied arch.
Flashing.
One's on tower.
I'm out.
Let's go B.
Trip,
He's emo. I think.
Oh, great shit,
I
boys.
think one's flanking mid, one's coming spawn.
Got their spawn.
Oh, one more. Both teams.
Ooh, I hit him.
Alright, fine.
One more. Peek that bit.
Bo, go kill him, dog. There's an off there, don't let him save. Jump through. Yeah, good timing now. Good timing now. Oh
What?
my God.
30 years of experience. serious?
I did everything right there. You jumping shot me. What do you mean? I made the right play, Ocean. I didn't run into a multi-angle.
Yeah, baby.
Say no more.
Switch off water.
Spam the boost, spam the boost.
That's
nice.
a sick fucking. He's back up, back up. Triple?
Triple and back call.
One back call.
Yeah, you're fine.
Don't move. Don't move.
Not moving. Get back on my head. Don't move.
You're too high up. You're too high up, Duck. Oh.
Let's get spawn. Let's get spawn, Ocean. You got him.
I'm all the way up! Send it, send it. Look at Ocean, doesn't even upgrade. What a fuck. Give me that 18, you, or not the 18. I want the Mac 10.
No.
Give me the Mac 10
Wow.
right now, you fucking hobbit.
Yeah.
Stand back corner.
What the?
Ace clear, ace clear.
One arch.
No, it's save mode, save mode.
Arch
One more.
Wait for this guy.
Bro, this guy walked through fucking arch. I thought my team was there.
Nice.
It's punter for you. 10 seconds defuse. Oh, then you're there. You lost. Block out. You need to hurry, dog.
Yeah, go off with your rara.
Pop him.
God
Nice.
damn it, dude.
You had it, though. You had
You
time if
almost
you
had
let
it.
him. You had time if you killed that guy.
These guys are such virgins. It's pissing me off that we're losing to them.
49
It's
points.
the Goonie gang. You guys are known.
Go.
Go.
Flash one roll, land, you guys.
I already flash, bro.
Alright, whatever. Let's go. Nice shit. Good job.
One more hit. All's good.
One
No,
statue.
Turk, he said-
Saves, dog.
Oh, just hiding sight. Where are you little fucking bitch?
I was gonna. Okay. I thought Bo and you.
Wait. He won't expect you here.
Hold on.
You got this. Wait, they
They won't
know.
expect
Long,
me here.
you said 3B, Tarek knife out into CT spawn.
Dude, these
Long,
guys
you called 3B.
One corner, one stand back.
I could flash, call it.
He's blind.
Good.
Flashing.
See there.
No, two.
Lit.
Okay, we need to fight fire with fire here.
One right mid. One more time.
So,
Bridge! God damn it! You should have went bridge!
he's running away. There's one more here.
Not one motor side.
Just go kill
Could
that
be
guy.
side.
He's lit. No, he ran.
You have it done.
Mid side!
Oh, I'm planning to say.
Oh, library, dog.
He's in!
He's lit, 10 HP.
Thank God.
God, I thought Mo was chilling for a second.
I was telling you, and you're doing
No,
nothing. You're not reacting.
I didn't
to
know
my
if you were. I
call.
don't know if you were playing for
I'm
real or not,
watching you
dog.
like, dude.
Dude, he said it so many times. I thought for sure you're chilling.
Well, because you weren't reacting.
Check that pick, dog. What? One more?
Trap sandbags right now. Kill this guy. Killed him.
Get him, Flum. Ooh, that's
Killed him.
nice.
Woo! Done. One more flop. You got this.
You got it.
Yes! Aww.
Jumping.
You hit him up. First.
Alright.
1-1.
Get him, dude.
God
Spawn.
damn it.
Who's speaking spawn?
Ocean, we didn't even plant the.
You're peeking spawn.
This guy's gotta be spawned now. It's
7
taking
bullets.
too long. 7 bullets.
You sure?
Don't spray.
Make sure you aim.
Wait, who the fuck's that chilling in the
Hey,
fountain?
It's like he has a date. He has a date.
Bro,
Look at him. He's sitting next to his
This
girl.
guy's
What's
calling
up,
for a
babe?
taxi, dog.
What's up?
Woo! Hell yeah.
That's OD when he plays.
Smoking a doobie.
That's legit Ocean after he died. That's legit Ocean after he
element inside the list. There's also another really cool method which is called pop, and you can just type out pop like that, and basically what pop's going to do is it's going to pop an item off of this list. So when I click the play button, you'll see here that we're left with Kevin, Karen, Jim, and Oscar. So we basically got rid of the last element inside the list, and that's what pop does. It pops an element off of the list, so it basically removes the last element in the list. So we have our list, but let's say that we wanted to figure out if a certain element was in this list, right? If a certain value is in here. So let's say I wanted to check to see if my friend Kevin was in this list. Well, I could say friends.index, and in here I can just pass, inside of these parentheses, I can important, this big allow us to do, and the most side of these, not only is it going to have all the elements in the friends list, it's also going to have all the elements inside the lucky numbers list. You can see down here we have all of And now when I print out this friends list, not only is it gonna here say another, it's gonna take one and all in this new other values.
Flashing?
One day quarter?
Stu, drop a molly. Stu, drop a molly. I'll smoke it. Drop a molly. Drop a molly.
Consider me your twin.
No, what the fuck?
Three. Oh, one to the right. Nice! Nice! Oh, we won the round.
Alright, I'm gonna go troll you guys. We gaming?
Hey. Are you gonna play or what, though?
Nah.
What do you mean, nah, dude? We need Pudge tonight. Let's go.
Nah, I gotta go.
What do you mean you gotta go? What the fuck is that?
Hello? Yeah,
Are you
no,
looking at
I'll be
me
there in
or
5.
at Stewie?
Yeah, no, I'm getting off right now. Okay.
Why?
Yeah. Okay. Alright, see.
He's lying.
Yeah, no, they got it. They need me.
That was so
He's
bullshit.
The phone didn't even ring.
Thank
So
you,
that's,
guys.
listen, especially for you, Stewie, no more you know what words.
Ooh.
The fuck?
What the fuck? Did I come in at a bad time?
Are we playing or what? Did we miss
I'm not playing, dude. I got
Why?
fucking.
You
I got
suck.
meetings tomorrow early.
Bro, you
I
gotta
know
work
I
on
suck.
your-
I'm trying
you
to
gotta
figure out what I'm gonna do
individually
next to my
not
career,
FPL.
dog.
Trying to figure out that. Now, what's your
Wait,
res
who's
again?
who's actually smoking? 12 next to the strip?
God, why are you all using the same res? Like, I don't get. Is that the key to a fucking solid team?
I don't know. I just saw Cole using it, so it's like, alright.
But everyone uses it now. Zaiwu uses it. He's the best player in the world, right? Now.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, sure.
I mean, either that or he's close to simple. He's type simple.
Every pro I've asked thinks Simple's better. Every non-pro I've asked thinks Zaiwu's better.
Must be Zaru.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. I was DMing on this res and I'm dog shit.
Wait, what's the res we playing on?
1280 by 960. Everyone should play it.
Alright, I'm trying it out. I'm on 1280 960. Let's see what this res is all about.
Yeah, that's what I just went to.
If I don't
We're
get
all
3 kills
actually
on
on
pistol, I'm switching off. Don't do it to them. Don't do it to them. What?
On ramp.
I can't see my crosshair. I can't see my crosshair.
Ooh, this res is sick.
Damn.
Bro, I can't see my crosshair.
Dude, I love plugging, dude. Fuck FPL. Those kids are way too good.
Not changing rip. I think.
You ready? Ooh, pop your boy.
Ooh.
Pop your boy, baby.
Hold on. Going.
Pop your boy, bro.
Yeah, pop.
Wait, this res is hella easy, dude. Is that who plays on this shit? I've really been missing out.
Oh, he's in the
guys.
smoke. Get him, Stewart.
Ladder here.
New room, Tim.
I suck.
Nice job.
Down by me.
Someone what? You what? Oh, you
Ooh. My native, my native servant, bro. Let's go. Let's go. Unknown.
Oh, it's me. Ready? Let's go.
Oh, everyone, train him. Run a train on him. Run a train
Yeah.
on him. Oh no! Run a train on him.
Turn in the corner.
Which corner?
Don't see him, Tim. Get bomb.
Wait, I saw this spot on Reddit. Hold on. I'm hiding.
No.
No!
He's gone.
Alright, I'll see you guys later.
Go kiss the back.
We're fucked up, B, boys.
Splash down the ladder.
This is a nice fucking degenerate.
Where are they?
2B.
What was it?
2 were forklift.
Yep, they're better. Ooh.
Actually, they're boxed.
Tap him out, tap him out. Alright, spray him out. Alright,
Nice,
nice.
baby.
T-spawn, I think.
This is the res, this is the res.
This is the
It was
rest.
mid, I think. It's like in the ladder.
You guys got this.
The kid's coming.
You guys do your thing. Yep, that's good, that's good. Don't bait, don't worry about
I got
that.
a flash. Ready? I got a flash for you guys. Go!
This is sick. They don't know I'm here. I'm not gonna get a single kill. I'm
Go,
fucking
Terry,
pissed.
go.
Nice, good job, guys. I'm glad. I'm happy for you all. This is the spot I was trying to show you guys.
TC by stairs. It's going back towards stairs left side
How do I
now.
get into here? Wait, is it not possible?
Get
Yo, can I not get into here?
No,
yeah.
yeah, feel. They're in their spawn still, right?
No, that's from Dodo. Yo, boost right? I can boost one. Get there, Jack.
Oh, he's through.
Dude, they're fucking camping their base, these little virgins.
That's pretty sick.
Oh my god, I'm back.
One door.
Oh no, one side.
Back, Jack.
My aim's dead!
are going to get pushed up. They're going to get pushed to the right one index position. So now when I run the program, you can see we have Kevin, this new element Kelly, and then all the other elements have been pushed off to the right.
Time. Who has a mute mate? Why do we have 6 sex dogs? Not dogs. Oh my god. Why? Dolls. 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 Dolls.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
One index position. So now when I run the program, you can see we have Kevin, this new element Kelly, and then all the other elements have been pushed off to the right. We can also remove elements. So for example, let's say I wanted to remove this gym value. All I have to do is just say friends.remove, and I can just type in whatever element I want to remove. So I want to remove this gym element. And so now when we run the program, Jim is going to be gone from the list, and we just have these 4 guys left. You can also remove all of the elements from the list. So if I just wanted to completely reset the list and get rid of everything, I could just say friends.clear, and this is going to give us an empty list. So it'll get rid of every single element inside the list. There's also another really cool method which is called pop, and you can just type out pop like that. And basically what pop's going to do is it's going to pop an item off of this list. So when I click the play button, you'll see here that we're left with Kevin, Karen, Jim, and Oscar. So we basically got rid of the last element inside the list, and that's what pop does. It pops an element off of the list. So it basically removes the last element in the list. So we have our list, but let's say that we wanted to figure out if a certain element was in this list, right? If a certain value is in here. So let's say I wanted to check to see if my friend Kevin was in this list. Well, I could say friends.index, and in here I can just pass a value. So I could say Kevin, and this is going to tell me the index of Kevin. So it'll tell me if Kevin's in the list. So now when I click play, you can see down here it says 0. If I was to say Oscar in here, for example, now
Oh my god, mid, two. Fuck.
Ace clean.
Doesn't know you're there, big dog. This is your chance. 1280, let's go. Yes, 1280. One more. What the fuck? No.
Oh, still on the catwalk.
Outskirt. Ooh, that's your res.
100%. I like this shit.
Keep the gunners on too, that's helping.
Yep.
No, where's my gunners at, dude? Oh, I have them right here. Alright, here we go. Here goes nothing.
Or camping to spawn.
Can't afford it.
Ooh, I don't know if this is an angle. I do not know if this is an angle, but I'm zoomed in. Ooh, what the fuck is happening? No scopes only go.
Yep.
We might be nuts. It might not be them, it might be us.
That's what I thought. Then I played FPL. Then I played FPL versus Whippy. Then I realized.
Hey, drop her.
No worries. That one will.
Bomb down.
Bomb it.
Yeah.
Fuck, no, what am I doing?
No.
Both in B. Thought I was sick for a second. Throw the mat. Ooh.
Oh, peeked right. They're both like within each other.
There it is.
No.
Ooh, 1-on-1 Turk.
Yeah, it's
Go back to your res.
Alright,
please.
I'm going back.
Everything I saw there, I wish I didn't see.
My ping just keeps getting.
Never mind. Hey, you getting that pick?
You got me.
I'm coming. I'm dropping his ass. Ready? Yeah.
This fortress is kind of broken, huh?
It's not, you can't shoot through it from CT, only from T.
Oh my bad. I don't know if this is the rest for me anymore, boys. Nice. We have a splash, and we're ready to use it.
Left side, same side. We killed that first guy.
Use your mag, it's better. There it is. Dude, don't debull anymore.
My bad.
You're just not a one-hitter quitter.
I'm usually
You need a bullet that spreads apart to hit people.
I need Bloom.
Yeah, I like this res.
I got him. Didn't go out. It didn't go out. You can eat it. You can eat it. Ooh, nice bro.
I think they're all in those same spots over there.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, you play hella better when I watch you.
Like that?
That ass you do.
I know, I really do. When you watch, it's weird.
Oh shit.
Even your movement, like you're like jumping around and shit. Ooh, ah.
Look at that, bro. Fucking light on my feet, dog.
Come on, bro. This guy just fucking.
Come on,
Send
bro.
them out. Use the smoke. Use the smoke, bro. Nice shot.
I tried. Watching you, wait. Go ahead, man. Do your thing, To your left, to your right, Pop them off. Quick scope, they don't know about you. No. Not like that. That was a little crazy. It's usually just us rushing them and they can't do shit about it. But yeah, I'm playing music, dude. That's what I fucking hear. Why is no one telling me this, dude?
Oh my god.
I was gonna say you heard him.
For a second. Wait, the A9, you heard him?
No.
Oh. What were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, man, you could be the first though.
No way, middle of 10 health. Fuck my life.
You like this spot? What do you think?
Yeah. It's sick, dude. You almost fell off the map. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll begin.
Oh my god, bro. Are you afraid of heights?
A little bit.
Look at that
Look at that
long
USB.
way down, dog. It's still falling.
Wait, there's like cars and shit moving. It's like a bus.
Mid.
It's sick graphics.
It's like GTA down there.
It'll give me the index of Oscar. So that's at 3. But if I put a name that wasn't in here, so like if I put Mike, that's not in the list. And so now we're going to get back an error because it says Mike is not in the list. So that's an easy way to figure out if a specific element is inside of the list. And if it is, then you'll know what index it's at. You can also count the number of similar elements in the list. So I'm actually going to come down here, copy this gym element, and we'll add another gym element into here. So I could come down here and I could say friends.count, and we'll pass in gym. And this will tell me how many times the value gym shows up inside of this list. So it should say 2, which it does down there, because we have 2 values with the text gym. And so we have all these values. We could also sort this list. So I could come over here and I could say friends.sort. And what this will do is it'll sort the list in ascending order. So we have a bunch of text here, and you'll see what it does. Basically what it's going to do is it's going to put it in alphabetical order. So
Mo, give me back here. Give me back
What do you?
Oh, Ian. Is there anyone they haven't told off yet, Henry? Swagger Soul's up there at the top. Either way, $1,000 on Nitro and a leash. Shotgun comes out and British cheaping out. CZs for twists. Fnatic get their first round back right away. But he lands the shot. He's so unlucky not to get that frag. Misfits crew in the house. It's going to be a back-to-back counter-strike. He's like double armored. He's got chainmail as well. 50%, by the way. Can't imagine you could see a whole lot of those. It's hard to see the screens. Exactly. Imagine actually, like, when you used to wear those in battle. Like, you can't see much in general. Yeah, I guess it's better than a blade to the face. Debatable, really. So the single AKJW will...
YouTube Music. Download aplikasinya sekarang dan
you can see we have J, K. O and T. So the list went from being just random order, like whatever we had up here, to now it's in alphabetical order. And that's also going to work for lucky numbers. So I could say like lucky numbers dot sort, and then we'll print out lucky numbers. And these should now be in ascending order, which I'm realizing they already are up here. But if I was to take this 42 and put it down here, now it will figure everything out and put it in ascending order anyway. We can also reverse a list. So if I wanted, I could reverse this lucky numbers list. I could say lucky numbers dot reverse, and now when we print it out, instead of being 42, 8, 15, 16, 23, it's going to be 23, 16, 15, 8, 42. So it's basically just reverse the order of the list. And finally, there's one more list function I want to show you guys, which is copy. So I could actually create another list and I could make it as a copy. So I could say like friends2, and we could set this equal to friends.copy. And now friends2 is going to have all the same attributes as friends, because it's basically just like copied. It basically took a copy of that friends list. So you can see it's the same exact thing. And copying lists can come in handy in a lot. Lot of different situations. So those are just some basic list functions, and just to kind of like, you know, get your feet wet in working with lists. Obviously, like the more you work with them, the more you practice using these different functions, the more comfortable you're gonna get. But that's just kind of like a basic overview of what you can do. In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about tuples in Python. Now, a tuple is a type of data structure, which basically means it's a container where we can store different values. Now, if you're familiar with lists in Python, a tuple is actually very similar to a list. It's basically a structure where we can store multiple pieces of information. But a tuple has a few key differences from lists that we're going to talk about in this tutorial. First thing I want to do is I want to show you, though, how to create a tuple. So I can come down here and I can create a tuple, and one of the most common examples of tuples is coordinates. So let's say I had a series of like XY coordinates. I could create a variable called coordinates, and I'm just going to set this equal to an open and close parentheses. And whenever we want to create a tuple inside of Python, we're going to use these open and close parentheses. And inside of here, inside of these parentheses, we're going to put the values that we want to store. So I could, for example, put a list of
seconds. Bomb. It's the objective, but it's not the factor. Crims has a Molotov. Molotov won't take vision away. Tries to bait the crowd. Cheeky Crims. Sorry, but it's not going to help you this time. He is not flanked around. Let's see what he can get instead. As he looks to the bomb, back exposed, Twist sees him, and then reveals it. It's a hard shot to hit. Crims, he ducks down the water. Now the Molotov throw, but Twist hits the headshot anyway.
Numbers. So this could be like my coordinates. I could have like 4 and 5. So this would be my tuple with coordinates inside of it. And one of the things about tuples that makes them unique is a tuple is immutable. And you'll hear that word a lot when we're talking about tuples, immutable. It basically means that the tuple can't be changed or modified. Once we create our tuple up here, You cannot modify it, you cannot change it, you can't add elements to it, you can't erase elements from it, you can't change any of the elements inside the tuple. What you see is what you get. Once you create the tuple, it's as it is, it can't change. So I could come down here and I could print out some of the attributes inside the tuple, and the way I can access them is just by using an open and closed square bracket, and in here I can pass in a index. So tuples are indexed starting at 0, so technically we would say that 4 is at index position 1, and 4 is at index position 0, and 5 is at index position 1. So if I said coordinates 0, now it should print out 4. And down here we're printing out 4. So if I wanted to print out that 5, we can just put a 1 inside of those square brackets, and now we'll print out that 5. So I can access the elements inside of a tuple. I can easily access each entry, but if I was to come over here and try to change one of the elements, so if I said coordinates and coordinates 1 and I tried to set it equal to something else like 10, Python's actually going to give us an error when we run this program. So I'm going to run the program. You see we get this error. It says type error tuple object does not support item assignment because it's immutable, because we can't change it. So that's basically what tuples are, how we can create them, and a tuple, like I said, it's very simple. You just create it and then you have it. And now I want to talk to you guys about a common topic in Python, which is the difference between tuples and lists. So remember, a list is basically doing the same thing. A list, if we wanted to create a list, we would just use square brackets instead of those parentheses. And if I was using a list, I could assign different values to it. I could basically mutate any of the elements. I could add, delete, modify, change, whatever I wanted with the list. But with a tuple, we can't do that. And that's sort of the basic difference. And really, Python doesn't say anything more than that. It basically just says like one of them is immutable, one of them is not. But in practical use cases, generally people will use tuples for data that's never going to change. So you'll store data inside of a tuple when that data doesn't need to be mutated. That's why something like coordinates is such a good candidate for a tuple, because once you have coordinates, like, we're probably not going to modify them, right? We might add other coordinates. So for example, if I wanted, I could create a list of tuples. So I could say like 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe we have some other coordinates like 80, 34. So here I have a list, and inside of it we have these tuples. But remember, these tuples can't be modified. The values can't be changed. So really, it's just a case-by-case basis. I would say by a huge majority, you're going to be using lists most of the time. Tuples are more of a niche. They're used in more special situations. But there are plenty of situations where you want to use tuples. So if you're in a situation where you want to store data that can't be changed or mutated, then tuples are the way to go. So yeah, that's just some basics about tuples, some basics about the difference between lists and tuples. And so a tuple is a great thing to add into your Python repertoire. In this tutorial, I want to talk to you guys about using functions in Python. Now, a function is basically just a collection of code which performs a specific task. So I can take a bunch of lines of code that are basically doing one thing. I can put them inside of a function, and then when I wanted to do that task or do that one thing that the function was doing, I can just call the function. And so functions really help you to organize your code a lot better. They allow you to kind of break up your code into different little chunks that are doing different things, and they're really just awesome. So functions are like a very core concept when we're talking about programming in Python. So I'm going to show you guys how to create an awesome function today. Let's say for the purposes of this tutorial, we want to create a function that says hi to the user. So the one task that our function performs is basically just saying hi to whoever is writing the program. So over here, if I want to write a function, the first thing I have to use is a keyword in Python. It's called def, so D-E-F. And basically when Python sees this keyword, it's going to say, oh, okay, this person wants to use a function. So after we type out def, we need to give this function a name. So just like when we are creating variables, we give them descriptive names, we also want to do the same thing with functions. So if I'm creating a function, I can just give it a specific name which basically says like what it's doing. So we're going to create a function that says hi. So I'm just going to call this function say hi, just like that. And once we type out the name of the function, and so also I could type out say hi with no underscore, or I could type out say hi with an underscore. Both are considered like good practices in Python. A lot of times if you just have a simple like 2-word function like this, you don't need to put an underscore, but we could put an underscore there if we wanted. After we type out the name of the function, I'm just going to type an open and close parentheses, and then I'm going to type a colon. And basically what this is doing is it's saying to Python like, all right, all the code that comes after this line is going to be inside of our function. And in order to write code that's going to end up being inside the function, we actually have to indent it. So over here, you'll notice that when I clicked enter, my text editor automatically indented the text. So it's automatically like using this indent here. And that's kind of like one of the rules in Python is like the code that goes inside of this function needs to be indented. So if I was to write some code like out here, this is no longer going to be considered inside the function. So you can see as I type out code, and obviously this isn't real code, but as I type text over here that's indented, this little like marker over here It's basically saying like, oh yeah, that's inside the function. But then when I write code over here that is like not at the same indentation level as this stuff, it's no longer considering it inside the function. So that's just a little thing. Any code inside this function needs to be indented. All right, so our function is just gonna say hi to the user. So I'm just gonna have it print out some text. It's gonna say, hello, user. So this is a very simple function. Obviously, we just have one line of code, and inside of a function, you could have as many lines of code as you want. But for our purposes, we only need one line in order to perform our function. So now all we have to do is call this function. So if I want to execute the code inside of this function, I have to do something called calling it. So if I was to just run my program as it is right now, I'm just gonna run it. You'll see that nothing happens over here, right? Even though this function is printing out hello user, when I run the program, it's not doing it. And that's because the code inside of a function isn't gonna get executed by default. The code inside of a function is only gonna get executed when we specify that we want to execute it. And in order to do that, we're gonna have to do something called calling the function. So in order to call the function, you basically just type out the function's name and those open and close parentheses. So I'm just gonna type out say hi and open and close parentheses. And now when we run this program again, you'll see that it prints out hello user. So we're executing the code inside of the function. And I want to show you guys just one more thing here, just talking to you guys about how these functions actually work. So up here I'm going to print top, and then down here I'm going to print bottom. So I want to show you guys the flow of these functions inside the program. So when I run this program, you'll see we print out top, hello user, and then bottom. So essentially what's happening is when Python goes through and executes this program, it goes over here to this first line. It says, okay, we want to print out the word top, and then it goes down here and it says, okay, we want to execute the say hi function. So Python actually jumps up and it goes over to this say hi function, and it's going to execute all of the code inside of this function. So it's going to go through, execute all of this code, and then once it's done executing all of the code in the function, it's going to jump back down here and it's going to move on to the next line, which is bottom. So that's kind of like the flow of functions. Again, with functions, generally when we're naming these functions, you want them to be named in all lowercase. And usually when we're naming stuff in Python, if there's 2 or more words, we're going to use an underspace or an underscore in between them. So I could write this out as say underscore hi. But in a lot of situations though, if I have a function like this where the name is really short, it might just be easier to leave it without an underscore. But why don't we just put an underscore in there just to be super Python official. Alright, so now we can actually make these functions a little bit more powerful. And what we can do is we can give them information. So a lot of times when we write a function, we're going to want to have additional information that gets passed in. And these are called parameters. So a parameter is a piece of information that we give to the function. So over here, I can actually specify that this function needs to receive some parameters. So I can basically say like, hey, if you're gonna call this function, you need to give us some information. You need to give us some parameters. And all I have to do that is just type out the name of the parameter that I want to receive. So why don't we allow the code calling this function to tell it what name to say hi to. Up here I can just say name. And basically what this means is, it means whenever I call this say hi function, we have to give it a name. So down here, if I was to call this, I have to include a name in here. So I can say like Mike. And what we can do now is we can actually access this parameter or this variable inside of our function. So I could come over here and instead of saying hello user, I could say hello name. And basically what this is going to do is it's just going to say hello to whatever name got passed in here. Here. So I'm actually going to copy this and we will do this twice. So I'll say hello Mike, hello Steve. And now when I run this program, you'll see that instead of just saying hello user, it's saying hello to whichever name I passed into the function. So that's why this can be really useful, right? We can give the function information, and depending on the information we give it, it'll perform its task a little bit differently. I could also include more than one parameter. So you can, I mean, technically you could have like as many parameters as you want. So I can put another one in here, we could say age, and now I'm gonna have to pass in an age along with these. So I'm just gonna pass in an age and pass in an age for down here. And I'm just gonna pass in strings. So we can say hello name, you are age. So I'm passing in 2 pieces of information, and now when we run this program, it's gonna call the function, and it's going to use both of those pieces of information. So it'll say, hello Mike, you are 35, hello Steve, you are 70. So essentially, we're writing out this one line of code which just prints out like hello to someone, and we're allowing this function to receive 2 parameters, so the name and the age. And depending on the name and the age, the function is going to print out hello a little bit differently. And that's kind of the beauty of using functions. So you could pass anything you want into a function. So for example, I could pass in a integer instead of a string for the age. So like I could pass in a number. The only difference is over here we're gonna have to convert this into a string, but it's gonna work just the same. So you could pass in strings, numbers, booleans, arrays. You can really pass any type of data into a function and it's gonna work. So you can see here we get the same result. So that's the basics of functions, and as you go through with Python, you're gonna be using functions more and more. And generally, it's a good idea to break your code up into different functions. So whenever you have like a grouping of code that's designed to perform a specific task, that's usually a good candidate to be put inside of a function.
Need an advanced website for your business? First, go to Wix.com. I'm Margot from Wix's team.